Beck, you are a spiritual business coach for spiritual women ready to build abundantly, heart led, and sustainable businesses that truly set their souls on fire. And you have a group coaching program, like a mastermind, is that right?
Yeah, I do. That's the main way that's the only way that clients can work with me at the moment. But yeah,
I love that. Do you want to talk to us a little bit more about your business and sort of who you are so everyone can get to know you a little bit before the session starts?
sure. So I'm Beck, spiritual business coach. I am a mum of three. So I have a 6 year old, a 3 year old, and a 9 month old. So I'm still very much in the early motherhood days and balancing biz life with mum life. I support spiritual women to build abundant businesses and build them in a way that really works for their season of life. When I became a mum, that became very apparent to me that we really need to be building businesses that actually work for our lives rather than the other way around. So that's what I support my clients to do and do that in a way that really aligns with who they are, their values, their gifts, what it is that they really want to bring to the world and achieve in their life and in their business. So that's what I support them to do. And as you said, I do that inside my program, The Spiritual Business Mistress Mind, which I've been running now for almost 6 years, I think, which
Wow.
is kind of insane to say, but it's been such an incredible part of my business journey, creating that space and growing that space and getting to work with women in that way. And it's kind of just gone from strength to strength over the years. So it's my absolute favorite way to work with clients.
I love that so much. And I really strongly believe and agree with the whole like leading in a way that actually is good for you because I think for so long and so many people in business will talk about business and sort of coach you through business in a way that is a one size fits all approach and you have to do business in a certain type of way to have success and it really isn't like that and I feel like it definitely needs to be spoken about a lot more but what I love as well is that you put on the form about how your approach really does combine like the soulful business strategy with mindsets, energetics, and fully embodied feminine like leadership. And I love that so much. And I know that my audience is going to love that as well, because that is just literally what we are all here for. But you've been in business for 10 years, I think that I read.
Yes, 10 years this year, which is very
Wow,
exciting. It feels
congratulations.
like a lifetime and also no time at all.
Yes, that is the way with business, isn't it? It just feels like it goes so quickly, but then you're also like, you can't remember a life where you haven't sort of done this, I guess.
Absolutely.
Amazing. So we'll get stuck into some of the questions because I feel like you've got a really amazing story to tell and I can't wait. So when you first started your business 10 years ago, was it how it looked today?
Absolutely not. I started my business, and this is going to sound really left field, but I started my business making candles. So I was a trained Reiki healer. So I was doing Reiki healings from my one bedroom apartment. And I had this idea, and I said to my now husband, I said, I think I want to make candles. And he was like, well, okay. At the time, I was studying interior design 2 nights a week, working full time, had a lot going on. And we did it anyway. He was the one that actually went out and bought me this candle making kit. And so we both learned how to do this together. And as I was making them, I then was like, well, I could bring this into my Reiki practice. I could infuse these beautiful candles. And so that's kind of how I really started. I started making these candles, selling them at markets, selling them online. And then because it was always spiritually led, and a big part of my own spirituality is goddess spirituality, and I really identify with that divine feminine spirit. I created this goddess range of candles, and to launch those candles, I um, hosted a workshop, a goddess workshop, and I did that with my mum, who is a psychic medium. And we hosted this goddess workshop, and I had all of these women in the room. I think there were about 14 of them. I can remember it so well, actually, the space that we were in. And I had this moment where I was like, this is it. Like, this is the work, being in a room with women doing this transformational work. And so from there, we kept running those workshops for quite a few years, actually, and I kept adding on different goddess candles. I then trained as a life coach, and I kind of went down the road of supporting women in spiritual life coaching, supporting them to, make that inner transformation. And what often happens when women do that work is they then go and maybe train as a healer themselves or go and do some different modalities. And then they came to me and they were like, "Hey, Beck, you've been running this business. I don't know how to run a business. Can you help me start my business?" And so it kind of just naturally happened that I ended up with some business coaching clients. I also had a few different side quests. I was doing some photography, I was doing some social media management. I had a food and travel blog for a hot minute. So I had these other skills that really helped me with my business and then also then helped me with supporting other people. And so I kind of brought all of this together. And once I started doing that work, I was like, oh, yes, I love this. Because for me, I have been a spiritual human for a very long time, and I love that side and the energetic side of things and the mindset work. But for me, I'm a very practical human. I am like a strategic, I love the action, I love a plan, I love having that structure in place. And what I found is a lot of my spiritual intuitive clients were not very keen on structure. They loved the flow, they loved the creativity, they loved the intuition, and they're very good at what they do. But it was like, okay, but how do I make a business work? And I was like, well, I can help you with that because I understand all of the work that you do, but I
Mhm.
also know business and I can help you do that. And so my business looked very different 10 years ago when I first started it. And it was probably 4 years in around COVID time, around the time when I had my first baby, that it was like, oh, okay, I probably need to go from having all of these things that I do and really simplified down to really focusing in on business coaching first and foremost.
I love that so much, and I can really resonate with that journey as well in terms of actually just sitting there one day and being like, "This is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be." So I had the exact same with my business now. So I've been doing my coaching for 4 years, but it was around this time last year that I really started going into the human design stuff. And before what it is now, I was always focusing on becoming her. And then I just literally one day had that vision. And I was like, but I'm not teaching women to become someone else. I'm teaching women to become them. So we changed it to becoming you. And then like the universe come about with like my theme park and everything like that. And I just knew from that moment, I was like, this is the work that I'm supposed to be doing. I was like, the work that I've literally talked myself through this step by step and everything works. Like every client that I've had, everyone's walked away and been like, this makes so much sense. I feel so seen and heard. And it is sometimes just that realization when you're like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and where you've had that natural progression as well. And you sort of had people come to you and say, can you support me with this? It's then sort of just like made you realize and be like, yeah, this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And I love that so much.
I always talk about following the breadcrumbs, like you just have these little moments. And I got tingles when you were talking because it's like, yeah, so get that. The moments where you're like, oh, okay, this is it. This is the next step. This is the next iteration. This is the next refinement or the next evolution. And you just get to keep following that path. And I think if you do that, then you can't go wrong. And this is where it's like, yeah, of course, you need the business strategy and you need a plan and you need to go and take some action, but also you need that intuitive element too, so that you're actually going in the right direction.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree with that because I think if you get so stuck on either one of those things, then it sort of feels a bit like overwhelming and all over the place, and you don't sort of know what direction you're going in. But when you can learn to balance the both of them and learn to balance the plan and the organization along with the intuitiveness and just following what your heart desires, I feel like it is the perfect balance for anyone in business because you have both sides to it, which is what you really do need in business. But obviously, I know with business, it's a very the time that we spend on business, like from the beginning to where we are now, is very, very different in terms of like our mindset, how we do things, and everything like that. And I'd love to hear a bit more about your journey with that too, because I know for me, when I first started business, I originally started off with a network marketing company and I was selling perfumes just on the side, just so I could earn a bit more money while I was doing my degree in childcare. And then same as you, it sort of fell into my lap doing this mindset coaching that I was doing and life transformation coaching. It was something that I've always been so interested in. Like I naturally have people coming to me all of the time for things like this. And I sort of just started it and I was like, yeah, I just know this is where I'm supposed to be. But back then, 4 years ago, the way I coach and lead and do my business is so, so different to the way that I do it now because I've had to grow in that time. I've had to learn new things and actually learn how business works, not as a whole, but as for me personally, because I was investing so much money and time into courses and people that would teach certain strategies in certain ways that just wasn't working for me. And until I looked into my human design, I never sort of understood why that was never working for me. And as soon as I looked into who I actually am, like deep down, I was like, okay, started implementing how things I'm supposed to implement them. And everything just then made sense. So I'd love to hear your story a little bit more on like the actual difference of you as a person, as a businesswoman from 10 years ago to now.
Mm, I think the biggest thing that I was doing when I first started my business was kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall. And I do think that there is an element of that kind of being helpful in the beginning where you're kind of trying to find where you need to be. You're kind of trying a few things, you put a few different hats on, you can kind of get a feel for where you kind of fit. You don't really know what that looks like yet. And, I was in my early 20s when I started my business. So I feel like that kind of also goes along with the territory, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't kind of find that groove for probably 4 years, which I don't think it needs to take that long. And, if I could go back, I would probably tell my early on in business self that you don't need to do it all on your own and you could probably get some support in and get some help in and you might actually move a little bit faster. But at the time I was kind of just throwing spaghetti at the wall. I also knew a lot of things and sometimes I think that can be really helpful, but also just because you know something doesn't mean you can implement it, or it doesn't mean that you have the accountability or even the support to make some of those decisions. And so for me, I kind of did a lot of different things, threw a lot of spaghetti at the wall. Things were kind of working, but then when I when I had my first baby, actually. So, that's kind of I feel like my business pre-kids versus my business post-kids is like kind of two different eras. But that was when I was like, well, I need something that's way more sustainable than this. Like, I don't have all the hours in the day anymore. I need to actually make a good go of this
Mhm.
and be a little bit more strategic in how I'm using my time. So, I'm really grateful for that season in my business, but it definitely probably didn't need to be as long if I'd learnt to reach out for help. I'm very independent, first child, eldest daughter kind of vibe in that way. It's like, no, I can do this on my own. I can do it. And it's like, okay, well, no, maybe you could get some help. Now I'm like, I've got my VA support. I've got a content manager. I've got a coach. I've got people around me who can help me. I can ask questions. I'm not afraid to be that person being like, no, I don't know how to do that thing. Can you please tell me how to do that thing? When I first started, I wanted to I think there's that element of, you wanna kind of present to the world that you know what you're doing and you've got this, really put together persona when perhaps behind the scenes, it's like you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants. I do think the online world is very different these days too, where actually being real and authentic and vulnerable is kind of more accepted. I feel like 10 years ago, 2016, it was still very polished. If you looked at the kind of coaching world back then, it was very polished. And I think we've kind of gone in a good direction in that way. So hopefully that answers your question a little bit. But I feel like I definitely was all over the shop and then I had a moment in time where I was like, "No, I need to get my shit together here."
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's them exact moments where you're like, "Okay, no, this is great what I've built, like, the person I'm becoming is amazing, but it's now time for that next chapter, it's now time for that next evolution." And it's in them moments where sort of everything sort of, I think, just slots together and fits together. And I've been through this myself, like, this past year. The first few years I was building business, I was doing it from a place of lack and scarcity and feeling like I had to prove myself and the pressure and all of those things. And as soon as one day I stood in my power and I was like, no, this isn't the life that I want, like everything then changed for me, like drastically in life and business. And it was the best thing that has ever happened because I think it's them moments that really help you in stepping into who you're actually supposed to be as a woman and what you're actually here for. And while all the work that we've put in before, like that doesn't go missed. And it was all needed at that specific time to teach us these lessons. And so we could be this woman that we are right now. It's always so important to sort of look back and reflect and never regret anything that you've done. Like I was the same as you. Like I literally threw spaghetti at the wall like for ages in my business and I was trying everything and sometimes it just felt like nothing would ever stick. But it's because I needed to go through all of that to actually realize where I'm supposed to be in my business, who I'm supposed to be helping, how I'm supposed to help them. And you're the same as me. You've got a 1/3 profile in human design and that is a whole part of our design is that we literally work through trial and error, through trying things, they don't work. Okay, what's the next thing? And that is literally how we're supposed to work, learn, teach. And when I learned that about myself, I was like, okay, I feel like I can breathe again now because it actually makes sense as to why I'm going through all of these ups and downs all of the time and why you sort of see some people on social media with their businesses where they literally can skyrocket. And I was like, but why is that not happening for me? And it's because with our like profiles and all of that in human design, we are actually supposed to go through that journey of the highs and the lows. Like, and that's actually a very good pivotal moment for us to go through those situations. Um, but I think you put in your form as well that you managed to move your whole family to your dream location through your business. Is that right?
Yeah, so 3 years ago now, a little over 3 years ago, we moved to the coast. So if you're familiar with Australian geography, I lived in Canberra and, that's inland, 2 hours from the coast. So we moved down here 3 years ago. We can walk to the beach in 15 minutes. We can drive there in a lot less. And it's just I remember when we first moved in, I loved the house we lived in. It was a little townhouse. It was beautiful. We'd done a lot of renovations to it. We'd had all this beautiful natural light, and I felt sad leaving it. But we came here and we live in this four-bedroom home with 2 living rooms and all this space and a huge backyard, and we're building an office studio out in the backyard for me right now, and we can walk to the beach and go to the beach after school, for the kids. Like, there's just so many moments that I still have here where I'm like, "Wow, we live here now. Like, this is our life. This is our home." And it was possible because I have this business where I can just run it from anywhere. And my husband's a teacher, so he's got a job that can be easily, you know, moved around. And it just all of the stars aligned. And it was like, no, let's make this happen. Let's move our family to the coast. So yeah, 3 years ago we were able to do that. And now I live in this beautiful location, get to walk on the beach every day if I want, and, raise my kids by the ocean, which is really beautiful.
I love that so much. And I feel like that must have been such a special moment for you as well. And do you feel like it was in that moment that you sort of sat there and thought, this is like actually truly working, like all of my dreams are sort of becoming a possibility and like actually happening for me right now?
Yeah, I mean, look, I have moments like that all the time, which I think is pretty amazing, and I often have them when I speak to people who, are in normal day jobs, and I'm like, "Wow, I'm so glad I don't do that."
Yeah.
E even the fact that, my middle child, he's 3, he is in preschool now, and we got into preschool kind of late. So he's kind of there for 2 years rather than the normal 1 year. But we were really hoping to get him into this preschool. And we got the call up about 2 months ago that he got in, and it's not on our ideal days. Like, it's on days that meant that I had to shuffle a few
Mm,
things around. And while that's not ideal, I also was thinking, like, imagine if I had a job, like, where I had to go and talk to a
yeah.
boss and be like, "Hey, so you know how I work on these days? Can I change my days?" Or, like, maybe you're not even in a position to have that conversation with someone. Like, I
Mm,
literally don't have to worry about any of that because I get to make those decisions myself. And so I have so many moments where I'm like, oh, this is it. This is why I do this work. And like, business is not easy all the time, right? Like, it's something that requires a lot of grit and a lot of determination, as people listening will know. But there are so many benefits, and those benefits always outweigh those moments, I think.
yeah. Yeah, they really do, like, and that's the thing with business, like, it can be so hard, and especially in the first, like, stages and when you're pivoting and, like, rebuilding and evolution and all of those things, it could be hard, and there's, like, some really tough moments. Some days you sort of sit there and think, like, "What am I doing? Like, why am I doing this?" Because it does feel like sometimes you pour so much more into it than you would if you was to go to a job that you don't really care about as much. But it's also in their moments where you realize, like, I've been able to build this life for myself. Like, I've been able to live that life I truly want to live, like, and have those luxuries and just those small moments, like you were saying about the preschool situation with the days. Like, I actually used to work in a nursery as well, so I sort of understand how difficult it is, like being able to get the children on certain days that the parents want. And then there's this constant back and forth with, well, I can't get those days off of work, or I have to work these days. And it is so difficult. So to be able to sit there and be in that situation where you could be like, "Do you know what? It is a bit of an ag that I have to shuffle things around, but how amazing that I can get to choose to do that. And this is how my life looks." And that's one of the biggest things from working in the nursery. Like, my own why is like, when I have children in the future, like, I want to be able to be that parent that I can move things around and I can prioritize them and not have to prioritize my work. And that has always been like one of my biggest whys with my business. And I think that just makes it so special as well, doesn't it? When you're building a business, not only for yourself, but for the ones around you that you love.
Oh, 100%. I mean, this is why we do it. And we're not just building a business to make money. Making money is obviously important when you're in business, but it's also about making sure that your business works for you and supports the
Yeah.
life that you want to have, and that you actually have a life outside of business, that you go and actually enjoy your life. Like, that's what we're here to do. And I'm a really big believer in that. So it's like, how do we build this thing in a way that doesn't eat all your time and doesn't burn you out, but actually supports you to create that life and
Yeah.
do things like move your family to the coast if you want to, or whatever that looks like. I know for me, one of the other kind of big win moments for me is the fact that I could take maternity leave. I had a baby last year. I took 3 months off my business, and my business kept running, and my clients kept being served during that time. I had um, a support coach who came in and supported them through that 3 months. The way we structured it, it was definitely lower profit months for me, but the business kept running, my clients kept being served, I get to pay my team that whole time, and I had 3 months off the business, which is amazing. And then I came back, and in the last kind of 6 months, because I've been back 6 months, I've been able to grow my income and grow my business in the 6 months post mat leave, which actually still kind of blows my mind, like, that I could take 3 months off, come back and grow the business. It's insane to me. And I know, like, some people who obviously have muggle jobs, day jobs, they will maybe be like, 3 months is not very much time to have off. But for me, like, 3 months is actually quite a long time.
Yeah, and you know what I think
And
as well, when you love your business that much and you're so passionate about it, you don't even wanna take that type of time.
yeah, yeah, it's it's kind of, for me, it's a creative outlet, it's a spiritual outlet, it's, my purpose, it's my mission, it lights me up. And that's why I choose to do it. And that's why, I'm juggling mum life alongside the business because I like having something. I think I would probably go a little bit nutty if I was only in mum life all
Mhm.
the time. And and I know that there are so many women who love doing that, and I love that for them, but that's just not me. And I think it's like really good to know exactly
Mm.
what that looks like for you and how you can kind of have these different things that allow you to still be you and still be the mum you want to be and, you know, do what you want, right? And I think that's the thing. Like I've had 3 very different maternity leaves with all 3 of my kids. The second one, I actually paused the business and I had 2 months off, and then I came back to clients after that. And so I've done it in a few different ways, which has been really cool as well. And all of those seasons have served me as well. Like none of them were wrong, if that makes sense. And I think that's the beauty of having a business, being your own boss. You kind of get to design what that looks like and make it work for you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what you said there is like the fact that none of them was ever wrong. I think that is the most like important thing to take away, like with business, making decisions, life, anything in general. Like whatever you choose to do and whatever path you go down, it's never the wrong path. Yes, you might come out of it thinking, why did I choose that? But it's been there to teach you a lesson or to help you build in another way. And I believe that if I didn't start my business 4 years ago the way I did, like all messy and throwing sets at the wall and everything, not having a clue, then I wouldn't be sitting here where I am today. And I do truly believe that everything that you choose and everything that you do, in the moment, it might not always feel like it's the best decision you could have made, but it's always there for a specific reason. And I think that's such a key, important takeaway to have with anyone in business that is sort of feeling a bit like, what am I doing right now? Like, this all feels too much, or even if it's just life in general, like I've been through that as well. And you do sometimes sit there and think, like, what am I actually doing? Like, why have I done this? But then when you come to that realization that everything is happening for a reason and whatever is meant for you will not pass you by, it is such a good mindset shift to have.
I could not agree more. I love that. And I think too, just knowing the way that I approach anything in business or even in life, I'm like, this is making me a better coach. It's making me a better mom. It's making me a better human. It's making like everything is making me better in some way, right? Like that growth that happens through those challenges is going to pay off. And of course, you can't see that until you're on the other side of it, and it doesn't make it any more fun, but at least when you have those experiences, like sometimes I'll even be, if I'm having some kind of challenge in business or if I've got to have a difficult conversation or something like that, I'm like, this will make a great story one day. This will make great
Yeah.
content in 6 months time when I can talk about it, or whatever it is. It's like
Yeah.
it makes you a better person because you will have grown through it.
Yeah, 100%. I really do agree with that. And you've got 3 beautiful children. Tell me how you're sort of balancing your mum life and working on your business as well. I think you said you work around like 10 to 15 hours a week on your business. And what sort of do you prioritize the most? Like, what does it actually look like for you, a day in, day out weekly version?
Okay, cool. This is a great question. It has recently changed as well. So, my husband was off for the first 4 months of the year. He had paid parental leave, which was really exciting. It was the first time we got that with any of our kids. And so he kind of had these 4 months off. And so I had a lot more time at the start of this year. And then we've just transitioned back to me being full-time parent during the week. So I've had this big transition back into like, oh, okay, 4 months ago, this baby was 5 months old and now you're 9 months old. And I'm like, I don't even know what to do with you anymore. No. The way that it looks is so just to give you the rundown, my eldest is in school, so he's at school 5 days a week. My middle child is in preschool 2 days a week, and then we very gratefully have a lot of family support here. So one of the other reasons why we moved here is my in-laws are here, and then my parents at the time had a coast house in the same location. They've now moved here. So we have both sets of parents here, which we're very grateful for. So on one day a week, they look after my 3-year-old as well. So he's out for 3 days. And so I've got those days where I'm just with my little one, and I work in nap times mostly, and then usually get a little stint in the afternoon when my husband gets home from work, where I can kind of pop into the office and just close out a few things. So the main the main thing that I do in my business every single day is support my clients. So inside my mastermind program, I have 2 different tiers. I have a higher level tier where those women get more access to me. And so they can message me at any time and I will get back to them within 24 hours. So they'll jump in with a message, they'll jump in with an update, and then I'll get back to them. So I do that throughout the day as I can in those nap times. Sometimes it'll be out on a walk, I'll be messaging them. And then I have the other tier as well where they still get access to me inside our portal. We have some office hours every week, and then I have my calls with my clients. So I generally have about 2 to 3 hours of calls each week where I have to be sitting in my office at a certain time in front of the computer. So it's not a huge amount of time, and I work that around either nap times, although that's not always super reliable. But usually I have some support to look after my youngest while I'm on those calls and schedule them at times that I know that that's going to be available for me, and then kind of just fit everything else in and around that. So clients is always number one. Content is probably the second thing that I spend a fair amount of time on each and every week. So I have a podcast, I show up on social media, putting out content, marketing my business. That's a huge part of what we do as online business owners. And then the third thing would be kind of just the running of things. And because I've got support in the business, it'll be checking in with team, it'll be planning whatever we've got going on behind the scenes. So earlier this week, I ran a workshop on how to launch and grow your podcast. So I put that together, delivered that, had a bunch of resources that I created. Sometimes I do that in the evenings. Right now, you and I are talking. It's late at night. My kids are in bed. I just make it work, I think, is probably the key thing. And sometimes it's hard. Like there are days where it really doesn't work, and I've gotten less done because my youngest hasn't napped for very long. You know, he's had 40 minutes in the morning and 40 minutes in the afternoon. It's not a huge amount of time. And then I'm like, okay, well, my main priority is getting back to clients. So I've got to do that. And then I'll see what else I can fit in. And if I don't get that done, then it's like, okay, well, how much time can I get once the kids are in bed? What does that look like? So I fit it in where I can. And it is a juggle, and there are a lot of trade-offs with that, but it's also trade-offs that I'm choosing. Like, I'm actively choosing to do this, and I actually really, really love it. And if it means that sometimes I've got to apply a little bit of force if I don't feel like doing something in that exact moment, then I've got to just do that and be okay with it, and know that when I come out the other side, having completed something and actually finished a task, that feels so good that it
Yeah.
makes the whole thing worthwhile.
Yeah, definitely. I think dedication is such a big part of business. And one thing I always say is you can't rely on motivation because motivation isn't always going to be there. But as generators as well, I'm also a generator. And I know that we will not get burnt out if we actually really enjoy what we're doing. And if we're pouring all of our time and energy into things that we feel so passionate about, we can just do it for hours without even realizing how long we've spent on it. And I love that about us because it means that we can sort of have that balance and work on the things that we truly care about with a lot more ease. And I think that that is a real superpower for us, to be honest, because I know that it's not that simple for everyone else. But like you say, sometimes it is just having that dedication and being like, okay, I need to just do the bare minimum tasks tasks. And as long as I get the bare minimum done, I'm going to feel great after. And sometimes we can put it off for so long. And then we get round to doing it, and it will literally take us 5 minutes, and we've been putting it off for an hour. And you just think, do you know what? It'd be easier. Just get it done. Like, just get it done. And then I could have just had this whole hour to just relax rather than procrastinating and worrying and stressing. But yeah, sometimes business is just all about dedication, and it's about how much you love and feel so passionate about your business as to whether that can be the answer in business sometimes. And if you're struggling, I think sometimes for me, like I just sit there and think, would I be doing this if I got £0 from it? Would I be doing it at 90 years old when I'm on my deathbed or whatever it is? Yes, I would be, because I love it that much. Sometimes you just need to bring yourself back to those moments and be like, I'm building this for a reason because it's what I'm on this planet for.
Yeah, I hear that. I really love coming back to your why. It's something that I say to clients all the time. It's like when you are feeling those wobbles around anything, even, and even when it comes to mindset or showing up to sell, and it feels a bit like, oh, what am I doing here? I feel like I'm shouting into the void, or whatever kind of mindset stuff's coming up for you as you're doing that. It's like, let's come back to the why and remember why you're doing this. Or, people who are like, oh, I don't want to be cringe, or I don't want to be seen this way, or I don't want, it's like, the why's gotta be bigger than that fear, I think, that why's gotta be bigger than the discomfort around it, like, yeah, it's uncomfortable to do some things sometimes. Yeah, it's, maybe not ideal that I'm doing this at whatever time of night it is because I didn't get time during the day because my baby didn't sleep. Like, yeah, it's not ideal, but it's like the why behind it is more important. And that's the thing that keeps you grounded in what it is that you're doing. And I think for me, for any other mums listening to this or anyone who just doesn't have a lot of time, I know a lot of people will build their businesses as, on the side while they might have a full time gig or a part time gig. You have to be really focused in and dialed in. And I think the only way that I actually run this business and get things done is that I am really clear on what my priorities are. So when I sit down, I'm not sitting here going, "Oh, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I don't know what my priority is right now. I don't know what the next step is." It's like, no, I've got a plan. So I know that when I sit down, I can just get straight into it and I don't have to sit there deciding what that next thing is. Cause I think we can waste a lot of time doing that when if we just spend a little bit of time getting really clear on priorities, we did that. And also sometimes applying a little bit of force around making those priorities an actual priority, because sometimes it can be easy to do other things. I'm going to go over here and still be productive and still get some stuff done, but like maybe I should actually just post some content
Yeah,
first,
not the needle
or
mover.
maybe I should actually get back to that email first.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, something that I got from that was when you was talking about sometimes it is going to feel uncomfortable. I think that is when the biggest growth happens within yourself and within business is when you step out of your comfort zone and you do those things that you actually really don't want to do. That is when the biggest growth happens. And I've got another question for you. What do you feel like has been the hardest times in your business, and how did you sort of hold yourself through those times?
Oh, it's such a good question. So, look, I've been through some big ups and downs in the business. I think the first the first few years of business were quite challenging because income was quite up and down. And so I hadn't quite got to the place where I had like this baseline of consistent income. And so I think because of that, I was kind of coming at business or coming at different offerings or different launches from these different places of like, I think you kind of mentioned it earlier, like there's a little bit of scarcity there around like, well, I need to make this work. Like if this doesn't work, then I'm screwed this month. And so coming to a place where I had that baseline or getting to that place initially was probably one of the biggest journey I think I went on, the biggest growth journey. I feel like once I got to that place, then the challenges changed. And like when you think about that, it's like, okay, now that I'm here, how do I grow this thing? Or how do I take it to the next level? How do I, I know there was a period in my business where I'd really plateaued at a certain income level. And it was like, how do I get beyond this income level? Like, I've got a scalable offer. What's going on for me here? I had, I've had quite a few, I always call them like messy middle seasons, where things are kind of just coasting along and things are feeling really sticky. Like things just aren't clicking for whatever reason. And you feel like the reason isn't actually clear. So
Yeah.
I've had a few of those seasons. And what's really interesting for me is I do think a lot of the time life can mirror business or business can mirror life. And I remember before I conceived my second child, it took us a while to conceive him. It took us about 13 months. And that season was really hard when you're trying to conceive and it's not working and you're not sure why it's not working. And I went to see a hypnotherapist and we did a few sessions together. And he said to me, like, you're just currently, because we talked about that, we talked about business, because at the time in business, I was like, I just keep hitting this wall. And he was like, you are just like looking at this wall and staring at this wall. And what you need to do is turn around and look behind you and see how much space is in front of you. Like, if you just look at this thing from a different perspective, like, stop staring at the wall and like, let's change your perspective here. And open up to the possibilities that are open to you. And what's so interesting is I think after 2 sessions of hypnotherapy with him, we actually conceived. And I came to that 3rd session, I was like, I'm pregnant after 13 months of trying. And, anybody who's listening to this who's been through a fertility journey, 13 months sometimes is actually not a huge amount of time. And lots of people have much longer journeys than that. But seeing you in that, because it is a lot. And similarly, this would have been 2024 when we were then trying for our 3rd baby. And that year for me was such a challenging year business wise. I And not because I wasn't making money, but I was in that season of like, I just plateaued at this point and I couldn't seem to get beyond it. And I was doing all of the right things, like I'd done all of this lead generation. And I remember in October that year, I had the lowest launch I'd ever had of the Mistress Mind before. So I'd been running the Mistress Mind for 4 years, I think, at that point, or 3.5 years or something like that. Had this really bad launch, the lowest launch I'd ever had of this program. And it had been going for 4 years and I'd been in business for 7 years. And I was like, what is going on here? I've done all of this. I've done all of this lead generation this year. This should be a sellout launch. Like, what is happening? And I know that there were some changes that I needed to make in the program. I'd probably been ignoring a few of those intuitive nudges along the way, which I would highly recommend. Don't ignore the intuitive nudges.
Yeah.
um, and what's really interesting is I actually changed a few things around in the program at that point after I had that launch, and then very quickly filled the program straight after that. So it was like that was the catalyst. But that season for me where I was kind of in this really messy middle, I also had I had a pregnancy loss that year. We were trying to conceive. Like, again, it was just this, like, there was a lot of yearning for what it is that I wanted to bring in, and I hadn't materialized it yet. And what's really interesting is once I'd made those changes in the business, we then fell pregnant very quickly after that, and then had my beautiful 3rd baby 9 months later. So all of that to say, I've navigated some very messy middle seasons where I felt quite stuck and stagnant, and nothing has ever been wrong and it's never been dire, but it's still been really, really hard. And I think coming out the other side of that and seeing all of these like little synchronicities and the way things kind of connect to each other is so interesting. And I think, business and like life doesn't have to impact business. But I think when you are a business owner and you are running a business that is so intrinsically linked to your purpose and your mission, and then there are things going on in your life and you're just doing this kind of dance in between these things, like it often makes sense even if it doesn't make sense in the moment. So those are probably some of the biggest things I've had to navigate. I've also had to navigate really annoying things like I lost my Instagram account. So my business Instagram account that I'd been building for 6 or 7 years disappeared overnight, and I was I was I was locked out of it. I was not allowed back in, and I never got it properly reviewed. I lost all of the main thing for me was, yeah, I lost followers. It was also the night before a launch, but I lost followers, but I also lost all of that business history, the history of the business that was living in my Instagram account. So that for me is probably the saddest part of it. Um, but like, those challenges, they're annoying at the time, but ultimately, the best thing I think about being in business is you can always do something. Like, there's always another step. There's always something else you can do. There's always another lever you can pull. There's always a way to pick yourself up and try again.
Yeah, definitely. And I think just hearing your story as well is so powerful to sort of show to women that, yeah, you can be in those messy middle moments, but when you come out of it the other end, it does all add up and does make sense. And I think I always say, like, you have different hats for everything in life for every different area. Like when you go into business, you put on your business hat. If you have a job, a career, you put on your career hat. If you're a mum like yourself, you put on your mum hat. And you always put those different hats on. And which is great, it's amazing. But also those things do interlink so closely because it all comes back down to your identity and your mindset. And if your identity and mindset is slightly off in one area of your life, it is going to mirror back into the other areas of your life as well. And I noticed that a lot within myself. So the past 5 years, I was in a bit of a toxic relationship, and that was when I started my business and all of the things, and for so long, I was like I knew what was holding me back, but I couldn't bring myself to let go of what was holding me back, let's say, and the moment that I did, it was Christmas Eve, we actually broke up, but the 2 days before that on the Monday, I just stood in my power and I was like, "This is not what I want. I want so much more for my future. Like, this isn't me. Like, I don't recognize myself." And as soon as I walked away and go, everything shifted for me in business, in life, in my happiness, in my identity, everything. All because I made that decision and made that really scary move to do something that I literally had to move 2 hours away. I got back in contact with family that I hadn't spoke to for 3.5 years, moved in with my mum and hadn't seen her for nearly 4 years. And it was crazy. It was a lot, but it was also the best thing that I could have done. And as much as during those 4 years of like starting my business, I did have those different hats and I would put on my business hat, put on my work hat when I was at the nursery, put on my relationship hat and all of the different things, it's still interlinked so, so closely. And I think sometimes just taking that little step back and being like, okay, it is safe to pour into myself. It is okay for me to put myself before my business because is going to be the thing that makes my business what it's supposed to be. And I think that's such an important lesson to sort of have and take away. And as much as I do wish in a lot of moments that I did walk away from that relationship sooner, I also know that I needed to go through every single one of those steps to stand in my power that day. Because if it was a year before, 2 years before, I would not have stood in my power the same way that I did in that moment. And I think that's the biggest thing is just coming to terms with where you're at right now and just really allowing yourself to be in the present moment and being like, it's okay. Like being in these shit moments are going to help me become who I'm supposed to become and help my business become what it is supposed to become as well.
100%. I couldn't agree more.
And do you feel like there's been any point in your business where you have felt like you just wanted to give it all up and you've questioned if it's worth it? And what brought you back to it if that has been the case?
It's a good question. I probably haven't had any serious moment where I've been like, "Nah, I'm done." I've definitely had those moments where I'm like, "Oh, wouldn't it just be easy to just go to a day job and get paid a wage and not have to worry about any of this?" And then I very quickly am like, "Oh, but yeah, it comes with a lot of crap that I don't really want." I think too, I I had a job, so I've had one salaried job after I
Mhm.
finished my university degree. And I remember saying to them, I said, "You've ruined me for any other workplace," because I was very lucky in that that workplace was very flexible. We had 7-hour work days. We could work those 7 hours between the hours of 7 and 7. So if we wanted to come in at 10 a.m., we could. Um, like there was just so many things about that workplace that I was like, if I have to go and work in a corporate role where they want me there at 8 a.m. every day and I have to wear, the whole corporate get up, like you've just ruined me for that because I just don't think I could do that after working somewhere that is so flexible. And then of course I've gone into working for myself. So there's just so many things that I think would make me a really bad employee.
I think we get so comfortable and used to the fact that like we are in control, and it's such an amazing place to be in that we can just control how we spend our days, what we do. And as much as a lot of that is spent on our business and like because we're so passionate about it, it's the fact that we actually get to choose that. And as much as like I've had it before as well, when I thought, do you know what, it'll be easier just like go into a full-time job, just do that. It's easier, stable, like it's secure, like you know what's coming, you know what's going. But I think I also thrive ad off of adrenaline rushes and, like, them roller coasters, like, I thrive off of that so much, and I think that's why I love business so much as well, because it is never like, one day is never the same, and I just love that about business so much. But that's really interesting to sort of hear about how you've been so connected to your business that you've not had those big moments where you have just wanted to, like, completely sack it all off, and I love that so much because it shows that you've listened to yourself this whole time.
Yeah, I think look, I've definitely had the thought of, like
Mhm.
I even just the thought of like, I wonder what it's like. Like, what is it like to not have a business to think about? Because even when I was working, I was still doing other stuff. I was studying interior design at night. I was running a food and travel blog. Like I always had like these little side quests that I was doing. Even when I was at uni, I was volunteering. I did technically have a business when I was at uni where I sold jewelry. Like I've just always had something else going on. I just cannot imagine a world where I'm not doing something like that. And so I've definitely had these moments where I'm like, what do these people do? Like, what do they think about when they're in the shower if they don't have a business? Like, what is it when they're just, like I love that. Like, I love that there is so many experiences that other people are having that I just can't wrap my head around, right? It's the beauty of life and being on this planet, but I honestly just cannot imagine not doing this now. But I've also been doing it for 10 years, so I feel like it would be such a massive, massive change. Like, I would be quite uncomfortable, I think, to go into a workplace and have a job. I have always said to my husband, I said, if I ever got a job, I'd want to work like one shift in a cafe so that I get my like people fix. Cause obviously, working for
Yeah.
yourself from home online, you don't often get that kind of like, and I'm very much a people person. So I'm like, I could do like 3 hours in a cafe, like on a Friday. I'm like, I'd be the worst employee ever, right? Like nobody just wants someone who can work one shift a week. But that's like my ideal, like something where I get to go and drink coffee, I can chat to people, I can, like move around a bit. I'm not just stuck behind a computer. That's the kind of job I would want if I wanted a job.
Yeah, I love that so much, and I completely get that as well. Like where I was in the nursery, it is the complete opposite to having your own business online because like I had the whole day, obviously no phone. I was with like so many like children and staff and seeing the families and communicating all day long. And I used to do long shifts as well. So I used to do 7:30 in the morning till 6:30 at night. And I literally had the whole day of being around people and like having fun and all of that environment to then having those days where like it was just purely on business and just online. And when I made that shift of going full time in business, when I made the move after the breakup, it was like, oh, what is this like? And I got into a place where, so with human design in your environments, with mine, it is I have to sort of be around people. And I got into a cycle where I wasn't really going out much. I wasn't really exploring and all of those things. And I was like, why do I feel stuck? And as soon as I realized that, like I started going out for walks, going to coffee shops again, everything shifted for me. And talking about environments in human design, yours is actually valleys. So this is designed to be in lower, settled, like community rich spaces rather than like on a mountaintop, say, where you're like sort of isolated, which is really interesting with what you were saying about like if you was to go to a job, you have to work in somewhere like a coffee shop. So then you've got the sort of people around you all of the time. But I feel like also where you've moved to in your environment now actually is very aligned to this as well. But do you feel like your environment has ever impacted how you show up in business? Like if you've been feeling like you're in the wrong environment?
Oh, that's such a good question. I remember similarly when I first went full time in my business, I remember really noticing not being in an office where there were other people around you. Having those other people around you often gave you a lot of visual cues to like go and get a glass of water or go to the bathroom because somebody was like getting up and moving around and you had that. I remember there was a few, especially in that first, like, I don't know how long, but a while when I was first working from home full time. And like this was pre-COVID, right? Like we're talking 2016, like nobody else was working from home. And I remember like really noticing, oh, I don't have those visual cues anymore. Like I don't have that like
Mhm.
connection with human people who like you make me realize that I've been sitting at my computer for 4 hours straight, you know? Um, so I really love working in a cafe. I do also like being in my office, and I know even we moved my office space just before my youngest was born. So I've been in this office now for 9 months, but I was in a different room and now I'm in this room, and this room feels so much better. Like, it's so interesting, just even the aspect of the room and where you are, like, I can feel that so much. And, you know, maybe it's not as obvious, but it is obvious when you actually change out of that space and you're like, "Oh, this is what it could have been feeling like. I didn't realize that the other space wasn't feeling that way." Um, and I know for me, I don't get to do it as much at the moment because I'm full-time with my youngest, but once he does start daycare, which we will try for next year, then I'll have a couple of days a week where it is just me on my own, and I will probably get back to doing, you know, at least half a day, probably in a cafe. It's like my favorite
Yeah.
place to go and work. So I really resonate with what you're saying around working that way. So for me, environment is so huge. And I feel like, and I don't know whether this is a thing, but sometimes at different points in my cycle, it
Mhm.
impacts me more. So, like, sometimes I'll be okay with my office being a little bit messy, you know, and I can kind of just like turn it off. But then, usually in my luteal phase, I'm like, power clean. This cannot be absolutely like, I need a clean space. This mess needs to go. I'm going to like go on like a massive cleaning spree and make my space more calming for me, you know, make my space somewhere that feels good to be. And it feels like sometimes I don't mind. And then there are other times in my cycle where I'm like, no, this has to change. We have to do something. I have to get out. And I know that if I'm ever feeling a bit like a bit just meh about business, or, you know, like I've got to do a task, you know, for example, something that I used to love doing, and I'll probably get to this place again, but I used to love going to the cafe and writing my weekly email from there because it felt like this really nice ritual. I could kind of connect in, I could be creative. There was no distractions from being at home. So having those kinds of things where it's like, oh, what would make this a really nice experience? How can I go and like find somewhere, even if it's somewhere else in the house, sitting at the, dining table, sitting outside, something that's going to make the space feel a bit more, I don't know, make the whole experience feel a bit more pleasurable. So yeah, short answer to your question is yes, environment definitely does impact me.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like you were saying, sometimes it depends on like your mood and your cycle, where you're at as to like how you actually want to work and where you want to be. And I think it's really important to listen to your body and to listen to your intuition and those things when making those decisions, especially for you because you have to make decisions with your gut. So making those even the smallest of decisions about where to work. Like I think sometimes as business women, we can sort of feel like we have to get stuck in a certain structure and routine of our day that we then stick to that and then we're wondering, well, why doesn't it feel right, why off? And sometimes it's just a tiny little thing like switching up where you're working, and that can literally make the biggest difference. I had it with a client of mine before where we figured out that the best way for her to work is by going to places like coffee shops and cafes, and she needs to have noise around her and people around her but enough noise so she can hear it, but not where she focuses in on it. So we was like, "Right, let's try a coffee shop." And she went there and she was like, "I've got more work done today than what I did the past 2 weeks trying to sit at home doing my business work." And it does make the biggest of difference sometimes. Um, the one question that I wanna end with for this is what do you wish that somebody had told you in your first year of business, the thing that you had to learn the hard way? What do you wish that you had heard back then that you could have implemented from the get go or that you really needed to hear?
I'm going to say this, but I don't know if I would have been ready to hear it. But I
Okay.
think, I think getting support in for the business
Yeah.
is what I would recommend. I waited so long to invest in a business coach and invest in support to help me really just get clear on exactly what I wanted to do and the best path to get there. I think and as you said, the journey's always part of it, right? Getting to where you
Yeah.
need to go, you sometimes have to go on that path. And as I said, I don't know if I would have been ready to hear this at that time. But I think for me, if I had invested in support, I wouldn't have spent so much time trying to do all of these different things and hoping for the best. I think I spent a lot of time hoping in
Mhm.
the first few years of my business. Whereas if I had gotten some expert advice, I probably could have tested out some very specific things a little bit quicker. And so for me, that is that is the piece of advice that I would give my younger self. Like, you don't have to do this all on your own. You don't necessarily know best and you don't have to. Like, it's okay that you don't know,
Yeah.
I think is probably what I would say to myself. Um, and that you can still test out all of these different things that you want to kind of test out, but you might do it in a slightly more efficient way if you had some support to do it.
Yeah. I think that's such a powerful thing as well, and I'm such a big believer in the power of investing, and it's something that I've done, like, for all of my journey, to be honest, is I've invested within my coaching, within my mindset, within my healing, whatever it is in that time, but I have always invested in something to either help me grow or help my business grow, and I think it is such a powerful place to step into is knowing that you sort of have someone there to back you up and to support you, even if you do know the answers deep down, sometimes you just need that little gentle nudge just to be like, listen to yourself. And then sometimes that's all it is. And I think even just those moments are so, so powerful. So I really do resonate with that as well. So Beck, before we wrap up, where can people find you? Where can they listen to your podcast? And where can they learn more about your mistress mind?
Yes, come over and connect with me. I hang out mostly on Instagram, so you can find me at Beck_Cuzzillo over there. And if you want to send me a DM, I will respond and send a DM back. It is me in there responding to you. So please come and let me know that you listened to this today. It's been such a fun conversation. I also have my podcast, Feminine Fire with Cuzzillo. So if you are a spiritual woman in business, we talk all things business strategy, mindset, energetics over on the podcast. So come over and find me there. And if you want to learn more about the Mistress Mind, you can have a look on my website, beckcuzzillo.com/Mistress Mind, and come and read all about the program. And if you want to have a chat about it, let's do that. As I said, my DMs are open.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. It has been an absolute pleasure. I know my audience are going to absolutely love to listen to this episode. I feel like there was a lot of like depth of truth and like the realities of business, not only the lows, but the highs as well, which I absolutely love. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.